Hello, YouTube. Welcome back to another episode of Many Tribes, One Kingdom. I'm John, joined as always in the studio by
Dustin, and with our special guest today,
Dimitri.
All right, so we're very excited to do today's video, but before we do that, I got a brief disclaimer. Not that this has been a problem in the past, nor hopefully not in the future. But I do want to make sure you are aware. None of what we say here is the official statement or opinion or position of any person or organization unless we directly state that organization and state that that is the official whatever of that organization. Like in me, John, Dimitri, we're all Salvationists. All of what we say, regardless of whether it lines up with Salvationist ideals or not, is our personal opinions or our personal statements and what we hold to be truth. So they are not the sponsorship of the Salvation Army. They're not directly affiliated with the Salvation Army. These are our personal opinions, regardless of where they stand.
we do not speak.
We do not speak. We're not official representatives of any organization. MTalk does not hold towards any specific religious affiliation or organization. We are an independent group, so please do not expect us or see that we are affiliated with any of those groups.
Now that that's out of the way, I'm very excited. We have a part two, as I said in an earlier video, we have a part two of our Q&A session that we did back in November. I'm very excited, and I know Dimitri's excited because he has some amazing questions for us. So Dimitri, without any further ado, ask us this first question. I know John's excited. He just can't sit still.
So, what are some forms of the devil?
All right, well, what are some forms of devils, John? I'll let you take this one.
Yeah.
I'll let you go first on this one.
All right. So when you mean by forms, so do you mean like what forms can he take? Like how he shows up in our lives? Could you give me a little clarity, please?
How can people see the devil? Like how? Like there's people out there who believe that the devil's not real, and that's probably the biggest lie he ever told.
Okay.
So how can you?
Okay, I think I understand you now. So, in my personal experience, the devil is very real. In fact, if you guys don't mind, I'd like to answer your question with a brief story, if that's okay.
I don't have a problem.
So there was a time in my life when I was really struggling, and there was this being that came to me when I was laying down. I was like asleep, and there was this being that came to me and stood over me and called themselves Gabriel. And, so of course, thinking it was Gabriel, I decided, all right, let me listen. And this being told me something. I won't go into detail about what they told me. That's personal. But they told me something. They said it was the will of God, and that all I had to do was wait and it would happen. And so I did that. And of course, the thing didn't actually happen. And so I started to think, did Gabriel lie to me? And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Gabriel can't lie. He works for God, and God doesn't lie. So that's when I started to realize, okay, whatever that was, it definitely wasn't Gabriel. And so I realized that maybe it wasn't Satan himself. Maybe it was just an underling of his. I doubt I was on his radar at the time. But I came to realize that I had had a personal interaction with a fallen angel who had come to me and spoken to me and tried to trick me. And in my personal experience, what I've seen with people, Satan takes different forms to trick us. For instance, maybe he takes the form of an angel or even the form of God himself. How many people have said they speak to, they've heard God tell them something and it's in direct contradiction to the Bible. For instance, saying, oh, God changed his mind on this topic, or God said it's okay to do this or that. And of course, we know that God doesn't change his mind, and we know that God is good. And so for someone to say that God condones an evil action, then we know that this has to be a form that Satan has taken to trick them. I have no idea if I accurately answered your question or not. I do apologize if I went off topic.
Okay, so you said you heard somebody, you heard a an angel, or so there's people that aren't aware of that voice. How can they see that?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Trying to think of the best way to answer this.
If you don't mind, I think I might have an answer to that.
Okay, go ahead.
It takes discernment. Honestly, it just takes you knowing the Bible, knowing the attributes of God and how he would address you in those situations. If at any part of that conversation it doesn't line up with the attributes of God laid out in the scriptures, which have been affirmed and checked over and directly transcribed from the Dead Sea Scrolls, then it is a high possibility that it is Satan or an agent of his doing that work. So yeah, it takes discernment and knowledge of who God is and who, once you know who God is, everyone who works under him in the heavenly realms follows suit. May not be they're definitely not in the same power category or same sovereignty category, but they can't lie. They can't break promises because they are part of the heavenly realms and part of the kingdom of God. They can't lie. They can't steal. They can't break God's own laws, because the same things we are held to on earth. Honestly, if I'm not mistaken, they are held to the same thing in heaven and in the kingdom. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, just study. It's too much to get into on how you can recognize it in this video, but we're going to tell you, just go back, read the entire Bible, note the character of God, and then you'll know whether God is speaking to you or not, or an agent of his.
So maybe part of the reason is because people just don't trust themselves enough to listen. They don't know what God is inside them. Like, they think that their thoughts are their own thoughts, and
I can say from sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Again, from personal experience, sometimes we like to hear what we want. We'll hear what we want to hear. I've had instances, for instance, when I've been praying and I felt that I prayed for something, and then I felt God was telling me to take whatever it is I wanted. And so, of course, I tried to do that, and it didn't go over so well. Or, for instance, I've had times when I failed at a task God has given me, when God directly gives me a task, and I've failed him. And, I go and I pray, and of course, God will forgive me. I understand that. But I hear what I want to hear. So I've learned, to when I hear something that I instantly know I wanted it, I've learned to really sit down and think about it and make sure it's God and not just John hearing what John wants to hear.
Right. There's three parts to this equation. We often like to say there's only two parts, of just God and Satan. There's three parts. Because of humans having free will, we enter in that equation. We know that the devil is good. We know that. Wow. Let me back up right there. We know that the devil is bad, and we know that he's evil. We know that God is completely good, but humans are in that middle. We're that mystery, so to speak, in that equation. They can go one direction or the other. And again, it goes back to discernment, trusting that God. But it also takes a lot of humility. You need to bring yourself down low and understand who you are in relation to God. Removing yourself from those prideful desires. And I'm making it sound really easy. It is not very easy. This is something I'm still struggling with right now. But you have to humble yourself back to the foot of the cross so that it acts as a reminder of who you are and whose you are, and where you are in that relationship, that you are weak, that you are totally depraved, and that you need to be fully reliant on who God is, and know who he is, so that you may not be deceived by man or by the devil.
How can someone with depression see God?
Ooh,
That's not let you go first on this one.
yeah, with depression, how can someone with depression see God? This is a hard one. I don't have much experience in this field, but I also understand that this is a very deep question. It's very difficult. Honestly, it's honestly very difficult, as some people say, to see the silver lining in a situation when you are depressed. But to simply say you have to fully trust in who Christ is. Not too long ago, I did the Bible series on who God is. He's Jehovah Sabaoth, the Lord of hosts. He's our protector, our guider in those hard situations. He's our healer, Jehovah Rapha. And he's our banner, Jehovah Nissi. When we remember who God is in those situations, it doesn't become an easy way out, but it becomes the first answer to a very long solution. And when you follow down that road and you truly believe that that is who God is, you start to feel hope in those hopeless situations. Yeah, that's all I have. John, I think you'll be better off at answering this than I could.
So I personally struggled for several years now. And I can say that, as Dustin said, it's not easy to see God in those times. One of the worst things you can tell someone who's struggling with depression is get over it, because that's not an option, guys. Please don't ever say that to someone who's depressed. Don't ever tell them just get over it. But that's not really the question. Sorry. In those times, what I've found works best, I do one of two things. And it comes back to what Dustin was saying about knowing who God is. So one of the things I love to do is I'll listen to praise and worship music, and I will get alone with God, and I will sing that music to God, but I will apply it directly to me. Like, it won't just be a song someone else wrote. This is a song coming from John's heart. It's not, for instance, The Altar and the Door by Casting Crowns. Great song. Love it. Go listen to it. Not a paid endorsement, just one of my favorite songs. That song is personally applied to me. And so when I sing it to God, I know that song because that's me. And then the other thing that really works for me is I go to the Gospels, one of the 4 Gospels, and I read the words of Jesus, and I realize that I wasn't excluded from those words. For instance, John 3:16, everyone knows this verse. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. What I have to realize is that I wasn't excluded from that. And so even in the moments when I can't love myself, even in the moments when I actually hate myself, what I've come to realize is that Jesus is still there. Jesus still loves me. And though it may be hard to feel his love at times, I know it's there. And so what I try to do is I try to get alone with God. I shut out everything else that's not God. And I just listen for his love. And I just wait to feel his love.
I have a part 2 to my answer real quick. So a lot of, if I'm not mistaken, at least a form of depression stems from the thoughts around death and our carnal nature, I would say. And that does stem from our total depravity. It stems from that, which that theological point states that we are corrupt, we are incapable of saving ourselves, and because we lost that, since we don't have that kind of control over that, we feel like we need to fill our lives with something that makes it worthwhile, to make the moment seem to last longer. Pretty much along those lines. And I've dealt with that at one point in my life. I felt so defeated, like I just couldn't move on from it because there was the thoughts revolving around death, like where am I going to go after death, and how will I die, and all this stuff revolving around death. And then it comes to the point where you had to remember it's not my job to save myself. The thought that somebody came and died for my sins gave me what I needed, which was hope in that depressed moment. And then from that point on, it never became a question of where I'm going to go. It became a question that it became the thing that I knew whose I belong to, and it's not my decision on where to go. And I need to let go of trying to be that decision maker and turn it over to the one who is that decision maker, and ultimately live out the life that he had commanded for me.
On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand.
Good one, John.
Well, I think that's all the questions I got.
All right. Well, hey, I love those questions. They're really deep, and I do appreciate you asking those questions.
Well, real fast, were we able to give a satisfying answer? Like, is there anything you want us to touch up on, or do you think we answered them well enough for you?
I think I did a pretty good job.
All right.
Well, if you in the comments, if you are subscribers or viewers, have any follow-up questions, don't hesitate to leave them down in the comments. We'd love to interact with you.
Honestly, yes. Put your questions down below. If you have an honest to God question, we will make another video. It probably won't be until February. At least until February that we get a chance to answer them. But the more questions we get, the longer these videos will be, and the more answers to those questions that we can help, through those situations. All right, so thank you guys. God bless you. Any more remarks from you guys?
I agree.
Just that you gotta end with our channel verse.
All right, so it's been a while since we did it, John. Do you remember it?
Luke 13:29, and they shall come from the east and from the west and from the north and from the south and shall sit down in the kingdom of God.
Also,
Amen.
I do want to say this. I won't reveal the secret plan, but we are going to be coming down the line with a new series that hopefully catches ground, and I hope you guys really enjoy it. I'm not going to tell you when it's going to hit. I'm not going to tell you what it's going to be, but you best stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy it.
Oh,